Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto gathered 10 legendary warriors and built a destiny-bound harem with Yugito ni, Samui, Mabui, Karui, Tamari, Tenten, Kuretsuchi, Mei Terumi, Anko Mitarashi and Konan to bring peace to the nations. Part 1. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. The village of Konoha was quiet and tranquil. Everyone was enjoying their peace and silence as everyone was enjoying their sweet dreams. All except one person. Naruto Uzumaki was known to be lots of things. He was called a knucklehead, a dead last loser and even a worthless shinobi. The only thing people could say about him positively was that he was the biggest dreamer for any fresh out of the academy genin. Naruto was currently in his bed tossing and turning while sweat dripped down his face. His face seemed full of anguish as he struggled through whatever he was dreaming during his sleep. No, it can't end like this. Why is everyone fighting? You need to stop fighting. Stop. Naruto yelled as he opened his eyes fast and leaned from his bed. Naruto panted heavily and looked at the sheets on his bed, then widened his eyes when he saw the sweat from his brow stain the sheets. Naruto rubbed the sweat off his face and gripped the sheets tighter. Naruto looked around his room and slowed his breathing down, which caused him to relax a bit more. It was just a dream, Naruto said before getting up and heading to the kitchen counter. Naruto turned on the lights of his one-room apartment and reached out for a cup and got some water from the sink. He twisted the cup through his hands and sat near his table. Naruto closed his eyes before taking a gulp of the cold water. Naruto turned his head to see the moon outside, then looked at his messed-up bed sheets. What kind of dream was that? I don't even know, but the villages were all fighting. It was a major war zone if I've ever seen one, which I haven't, but it felt so real to me, Naruto said to himself while he finished the last of his glass of water. Naruto placed the glass in the sink and turned out the lights before going back to his bed. I'll have to talk to Kakashi-sensei about it tomorrow, Naruto said as he dozed off, still thinking about the dream that had inhabited his mind. Next morning, Naruto groggily woke up and turned his gaze to the bright sun that shined through his curtains. Naruto slightly cursed that in the end, he didn't get any sleep at all and was now exhausted. He also cursed his luck of having training with Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto sighed and scratched his head as he exited the wrecked bed. Naruto slowly walked towards the shower and allowed the warm water to pour over his body. Naruto's spiky hair grew moist and dropped down, covering his eyes. If one looked close enough, they would see complete confusion and struggle within Naruto's eyes as the blonde seemed to be in deep thought, which was like him at all. I really need to talk to Kakashi-sensei about that dream last night. Hopefully, he will have some answers for me since I have no idea what I was looking at, Naruto said and turned the shower off. Naruto stepped out and wrapped his towel around the lower half of his body. Naruto reached for the cupboard and pulled out a pack of instant ramen. While he waited for the right time to eat, Naruto walked to his closet and pulled out his orange jumpsuit while narrowing his eyes. One of these days I'll need to save money and get some better clothes. I do like my orange, but it's not the best thing for being a shinobi, I guess. Oh well, I'll worry about that later, Naruto said as he slipped into his clothes. Naruto smirked when he saw the steam exiting from the cup ramen and sat down to eat. He finished his noodles rather fast and grabbed his wallet, then ran out the door. Alright, let's get to the training ground. Hopefully Kakashi-sensei isn't late, again. Ah, who the hell am I kidding? His is always late, Naruto muttered while ignoring some of the glares he got from people. Naruto knew about Kyuubi, but he didn't really care what people thought. So long as he knew he wasn't the Kyuubi, it didn't bother him about how others thought and continued on his way. Training grounds. Naruto entered the grassy fields to see his two teammates leaning on the fence waiting for their sensei. One had pink hair and the other had black that looked like a duck's. The pink one was Sakura Haruno and the emo was Sasuke Uchiha. Sakura was doing the usual, which involved trying to get the Uchiha to go on a date with her and kept getting the same answer. A cold, hard no. Hey Sakura-chan, hey duckbutt, Naruto yelled at his teammates. Both turned to meet their loud teammate, though Sakura decided for Naruto to meet, her fist giving the blonde a lump on his head while he groaned from the mistreatment. Shut up Baka, you're too damn loud, Sakura said while Sasuke shifted his gaze and ignored the two. Naruto sighed and rubbed the lump on his head as he looked at his pink-haired teammate. Why in the 7 gates of hell do I like you again? You hit me, you yell too damn much, and now that I really look at you, you're not even all that cute. Did my taste in girls always suck this much? Naruto thought and proceeded to lean his back on the fence also. Naruto turned his head to see Sakura continuing to pester Sasuke and turned his gaze to the clouds while thinking of his dream last night. Why did I have that dream? Why can't I simply forget about it like any other dream? What does it have to do with me? Naruto wondered, but soon began to drift off to some much-needed sleep while Team 7 waited for its sensei to arrive since the meeting was supposed to be an important meeting. 2 hours later, Naruto silently snored while enjoying his nap while Sasuke and Sakura seethed at the lateness Kakashi was showing them. Sure, he had done this before, but come on. Would it kill someone to arrive on time at least once in their entire lives? After 15 more minutes, a silver-haired man with an orange book and a dark green vest appeared on top of the fence while what seemed to be an eye smile. Yo, he simply said, which was missed by the sleeping blonde, but Sakura got to her feet and pointed at Kakashi with a fierce look of hate in her eyes. You're late, she screeched, which made Sasuke and Kakashi cover their eyes, but Naruto wasn't so fortunate and shot his eyes open while taking a kunai out of his pocket and shifted into a battle stance, which caused the other 3 to look at him. Everyone be careful, I think I heard a screeching banshee somewhere. We should all be alert, Naruto quickly said while Sakura narrowed her eyes at him. Sasuke gave a small chuckle along with Kakashi as Sakura hit Naruto on the head again, causing the blonde to drop the kunai and rub his head again. That was me, Yubaka. Kakashi-sensei is here, so let's go, Sakura ordered. Naruto narrowed his eyes again, but complied before picking up his kunai and placing it in his pouch as the team entered the training ground for their practice. All 3 genin stood next to the 3 individual log posts while Kakashi looked at them all. Alright, we will start you guys on some teamwork exercises. Here, catch, Kakashi said, throwing an egg to Naruto. Naruto caught the white shell while the others turned to Kakashi for an explanation. Kakashi gave an eye smile while holding up his book. I want you 3 to toss that egg back and forth between each other. However, after each catch and toss you must move back slightly until you can throw it far without it breaking, Kakashi told them. All 3 sweat dropped simultaneously, but complied and stood in a triangle sharp. Naruto simply threw the egg softly towards Sasuke. Sasuke caught the egg and moved back slightly before tossing it to Sakura. Sakura managed to avoid barely breaking it and sheepishly chuckled before throwing it towards Naruto while still looking at Sasuke with hearts in her eyes. Alright, stop. Now can anyone tell me what went wrong? Kakashi asked while everyone laughed when they saw the shattered egg and all its contents on him. Sakura turned her gaze to Naruto and pointed her finger at him. Naruto Baka, why didn't you catch the damn egg? Sakura screeched while Naruto turned a tired gaze to his loud-as-hell teammate. Sakura awaited his answer since Naruto was being unusually quiet, which unnerved the other slightly. Maybe if you weren't looking at your boy toy you would be able to throw it to me and not into Kakashi-sensei's face. You damn pink banshee, Naruto said, whispering the last part to himself. Luckily, Sakura didn't hear him while Kakashi produced another egg for them to work on. This went on for about 2 more hours, but they managed to gain quite a bit of distance before Sakura threw the egg to Naruto, however Kakashi stopped them. Alright, that's enough. You guys did surprisingly well. Now we will start some chakra control exercises to finish, then we can leave. No missions today, Kakashi told them. Everyone nodded and got in a meditative pose, but Naruto turned back to Kakashi since he figured this was as good a time as any to ask about the dream he had last night. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said, motioning for the copy ninja. Kakashi turned his gaze to Naruto and smiled while setting his book down near his pouch. What is it, Naruto? Kakashi asked since it was rare that Naruto ever asked him for anything. Kakashi hadn't really taught the blonde anything, but if he wanted some help Kakashi couldn't flat out deny it to him. Do you think we could talk in private? I want to tell you about something that's been bothering me, Naruto said as Kakashi stopped his eye smile and gazed at the blonde. It wasn't like Naruto to be so bothered by things before. It was even weirder that he felt he couldn't talk to Kakashi in the presence of his two teammates. Granted, they weren't friends, but teammates were meant to trust each other, right? Alright then, but after this you must practice, got it? Kakashi asked, to which Naruto immediately nodded. Soon the student and teacher walked off, which had Sakura and Sasuke wondering what the problem was, but neither said anything since it wasn't important to them. Naruto and Kakashi walked into a denser part of the forested area where the sun wouldn't reach them. Naruto felt the cool breeze on his face while his hair swayed in the wind along with Kakashi's. Naruto looked at the ground while Kakashi continued to read his book. Kakashi wasn't sure, but for some reason Naruto seemed a lot more serious and it made the usually calm Jonin tense slightly under the silence. Alright Naruto, what is it you wanted to talk with me about? Kakashi asked, not taking his eyes off the book in front of him, but he felt that he really should listen to whatever Naruto had to say. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the ground, trying to buy a few more seconds of thought before speaking. He couldn't believe he would need to talk to his sensei about his dreams. It felt almost childish in hindsight, but he decided to risk it this once. Hell, if he could talk about his dream of being Hokage, then how was this any different? Don't laugh or think this is a waste, but it's about a dream I had last night, Naruto said to him. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at what Naruto said, but mentally chuckled. He could only wonder if it had to do with Naruto's dream of being Hokage and getting people to acknowledge him for not being the Kyuubi incarnate. Kakashi nodded for Naruto to continue, still slightly amused that the blonde would talk about his dreams with him. Well, it's kind of hazy to be, but in my dream the 5 elemental nations are all at war with each other, Naruto said, shocking Kakashi, who barely managed to keep his composure. Kakashi slightly lowered his book to look at Naruto and could tell that the blonde was being serious and listened intently, though the idea of the 5 elemental nations all going to war against each other seemed like an out-of-this-world idea, but it certainly was possible. I saw a massive battlefield where there were countless bodies of shinobi from every nation littered on the ground. The ground was stained with blood and fires raged around the battlefield. Everyone seemed so angry with each other. Even the cages were getting into the violence. It all made my heart ache from the feeling of seeing people throw their lives away. But then I saw a bright light over a hill not far from where the war that was taking place. I saw 11 people standing on the mountain while looking down at the chaos. There seemed to be one person and the other 10 were his followers. They all jumped into the midst of the battlefield and began to counter each elemental nation's forces with their power. People all seemed to forget their fighting and concentrate on the 10 warriors and their leader. It was then I woke up with beads of sweat dropping down my face. It seemed so real that I couldn't get any real sleep for the whole night. Naruto finished and tried to judge Kakashi's reaction, but failed miserably. Meanwhile, Kakashi was in the biggest stump of his life. Naruto's dream seemed too detailed to be a simple dream. The way Naruto described it, it was more like something that was going to happen sooner or later. Kakashi couldn't even focus on his book and placed it away. I've heard of people having bad dreams, but this is ridiculous. That doesn't even sound like a dream. More like a vision, but of what? For all 5 elemental nations to go to war with each other, they must all have done something to each other. Something about that dream isn't normal. I should talk to Hokage-sama about this dream of Naruto's, Kakashi thought before turning back to Naruto. Kakashi soon gave the blonde an eye smile which caused Naruto to calm down slightly while Kakashi patted his shoulder. Well Naruto, I don't know much about dreams, but I don't think you should worry about it too much. I'm sure it's nothing important, Kakashi lied. Naruto seemed to object with him, but ultimately nodded as the two left the dense forest and appeared back into the field where Sakura and Sasuke had just finished their exercises and turned to their teammate and sensei. What did you two talk about? Sakura asked, which caused Naruto and Kakashi to falter for a few seconds. Kakashi turned to Naruto, but was surprised when the blonde smiled and sheepishly rubbed the back of his head, which raised the eyebrows of Sasuke and Sakura. We talked about the road of life, or the meaning of it anyway, Naruto said with a foxy grin that made Kakashi chuckle. Sakura and Sasuke sweat dropped at his answer, but appeared to accept it nonetheless and walked off since training was done for the day. Naruto sat down in the field and did his own chakra control exercises while Kakashi disappeared, leaving the blonde alone. Due to his large chakra capacity, Naruto simply made Kage Bunshin to help with the control since he learned how to use them right from Kakashi. While the Bunshins worked on the chakra control exercises, Naruto found that mediating wasn't so bad when Kakashi had taught them the first time. Sasuke and Sakura didn't really like it since their muscles stiffened, but Naruto found it relaxing, which surprised everyone that he was the one to enjoy mediating the most. During his mediation, Naruto heard a small ringing sound and opened his eyes, but only saw his clones working in the field. Must have been the wind, Naruto said with a simple shrug before closing his eyes again to focus. Naruto heard the ring again, like a soft bell being rung at a slow and comfortable pace. Naruto opened his eyes again, but didn't see anything or anyone. Naruto sighed as today simply wasn't his day. Naruto saw most of his clones still working on tree climbing. Naruto stood to his feet and focused some more, but the ringing stopped and he gripped the top of his head trying to understand everything. What is going on? First my dream and now this weird ringing. What's next? Naruto wondered before realizing the time. Naruto dispelled his clones along with the few successful and many unsuccessful attempts to climb the trees in front of him. Naruto rubbed his eyes and felt that he really needs some sleep, so he decided to go back to his room and do just that. Naruto turned back to the training field, but more specifically the pond, and narrowed his eyes at it. Naruto then simply shrugged since he felt his imagination playing with him. Man, today was too weird. I might as well get some ramen from Ayame-chan and Tsukiyoji-san while I'm out. Can't sleep on an empty stomach, Naruto said with a grin before disappearing from the training field. With Kakashi, the copy ninja was currently in the Hokage mansion talking to an aged old man wearing the traditional Hokage robes. He had a pipe in his mouth and inhaled the essence of the smoke while he heard Kakashi's news. Are you sure that's all that Naruto-kun talked about? Sarutobi asked Kakashi. The copy ninja nodded immediately while trying to judge the Hokage's reaction to the dream of Naruto's. Sarutobi always had concerns for Naruto due to a problem that he held. Sarutobi saw Naruto like a surrogate grandson, so hearing a dream as ominous as that had the aged Hokage riled up slightly even if he didn't really show it. Do you think Naruto had a vision of the future? Kakashi asked. Sarutobi turned to the window and looked at the village below before taking another puff of his pipe and then proceeded to take it out of his mouth. Visions have always shown up to the most unlikely of people, but I can only wonder about that dream of Naruto-kun's. For now we will do nothing, but keep tabs on the comes and goes of the other villages, Sarutobi said to the ex-Anbu captain. Kakashi nodded and shunshined out of sight while Sarutobi leaned back into his chair. If Naruto-kun's dream is an actual vision of the future, then we are looking at a very big problem, Sarutobi said before turning back and groaning at Akage's true number one enemy, paperwork. With Naruto having made it to the ramen stand, eagerly came inside and smiled looking at the ramen chef and his daughter. Hey Ayame-chan. Hey Tsukiyoji-san, Naruto said bringing the father-daughter duo to him. Both smiled at their number one customer and faced him directly. Hey Naruto-kun, how are you doing? Ayame asked him. Naruto grinned while taking a seat near the counter, but afterwards he sighed, making his smile diminish some, which had the two ramen makers worried. I'm alright, just been having weird dreams lately and not getting enough sleep is all, Naruto said with a simple shrug. Ayame and Tyuki turned to each other in confusion before turning back to Naruto. Well, I hope you will be alright, kid. I can't have my number one source of income go dead on me, Tyuki said while Naruto got a gleam in his eye and slumped his shoulders. So I'm only a source of income for you guys, huh? Naruto asked while Tyuki paled. Ayame glared towards her father and forced him to bow his head towards Naruto in an apology. No, Naruto-kun, you're an invaluable person for us. I didn't mean it that way, it sounded. I'm sorry, please don't misunderstand me, Tyuki said along with Ayame. Naruto chuckled as it was too easy to play with Ayame and Tyuki. It made his heart lighten from most of today's events. It's alright, you guys. I was just joking. Now please let me have some of the best ramen in the world, Naruto said, causing the two to perk up in front of him. Both nodded and waited for Naruto's order. So what would you like, Naruto-kun? Ayame asked him. Naruto smirked and adopted a thinking pose for a few seconds to think of his favorite bowl of ramen. I'll have 4 bowls of miso ramen. All Naruto size, and 1 normal barbecue ramen, Naruto said to them. Tyuki and Ayame nodded and told Naruto to wait patiently for his food while they prepared it. Naruto sat calmly on the seat with his mouth drooling from the delicious smell of the nearly prepared food. After 20 minutes of gruesome waiting, Ayame and Tyuki placed the bowls on the counter one after the other as Naruto savored the sweet smell of his food. Naruto grabbed his chopsticks and prayed before eating his food. Itadakimasu, he said before diving into the first bowl. Naruto hungrily went at the first bowl of miso ramen while Tyuki and Ayame watched with smiles on their faces of their favorite customer eat their food. In no time at all, Naruto finished the first bowl and moved on to the second. Both gasped at Naruto's speed of eating, but didn't say anything since they knew this was how he always ate. Naruto quickly devoured the second, third and fourth bowl before moving on to the last bowl, which was the barbecue ramen. Naruto's mouth watered at the meaty-looking noodles and quickly finished that bowl, also leaving a bloated stomach on the table along with a content and happy smile on his face. Thanks for the food, Ayame-chan, Tyuki Oji-san. Perfect as always. How much do I owe you guys? Naruto asked them. Ayame rang up the price and gave it to Naruto. The cost is 1,180 yen, Ayame said with a genuine smile. Naruto nodded and took out his wallet, paying the full amount of money and left it on the counter. Naruto bid his 2 precious friends goodbye and walked home. Man, that was good, Naruto said as he continued to walk to his apartment with a big smile on his face. It didn't take long for Naruto to reach his apartment as he climbed the grueling stairs and came up to his front door. Naruto fished around his pockets for his keys and came up successful in unlocking the door. Naruto opened it to see the empty room. He gave a small smile, wondering why he had to be alone. Naruto soon gave a lonely sigh and quickly changed from his jumpsuit to his pajamas. Naruto didn't really care that it was the middle of the day. He just really wanted to go back to sleep. The blonde soon climbed into his bed and closed the curtains, keeping the sun from penetrating the room. Naruto closed his eyes and went back to sleep, deciding not to worry about his dream anymore for the day. Later that night, Naruto was quietly snoring and having a simple dream, but opened his eyes and leaned up from his bed. He appeared to be in a daze while the ringing he heard from the training grounds penetrated his ears again. Naruto didn't say anything and simply got up before walking to his closet. Naruto put on his orange jumpsuit and blue shinobi sandals, then left the room. The blonde genin walked the streets of Konoha while the moon gleamed in the sky, but if someone knew Naruto well, then they could tell that he wasn't walking right. The blonde didn't seem to be aware of his surrounding at all. It almost looked like he was hypnotized by something. Naruto continued his sleepwalking and entered his team's usual training ground. Naruto continued to walk, but stopped momentarily to see Sasuke training near a post with his taijutsu. Naruto simply didn't say anything and advanced closer, alerting the Uchiha to his presence. Sasuke turned his head to see Naruto walking towards him and raised an eyebrow since he didn't think Naruto was a night person. Sasuke paused from his exercise and saw Naruto while the blonde Jinchuriki continued to walk without saying a word, which sort of pissed Sasuke off. "Hey Dobi, what are you doing out here at this late hour?" Sasuke asked him. Naruto didn't answer, but simply walked past Sasuke without uttering a word. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at Naruto's weird behavior. Granted, he always thought Naruto was weird, this was just borderline creepy. "Hey Dobi, I'm talking to you," Sasuke yelled, but he didn't receive a response. Hell, he didn't even receive a look that would suggest his words were even registered to the blonde. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and continued to watch as Naruto came to the pond at the center of the training field. Naruto looked at high reflection in the water for a few minutes before calmly walking into the water. Sasuke gasped as he saw Naruto disappeared into the murky water and quickly ran to see if Naruto had been stupid enough to try and kill himself. Meanwhile, Naruto was swimming through the water still in his daze as he ventured further and further down the water. Naruto was a natural swimmer, so staying under the water for long periods of time wasn't a big deal for him. Naruto swam deeper and deeper through the murky waters before coming up to a wall with some strange markings on it. Naruto's mouth moved, though he wasn't consciously doing it by himself. He almost felt forced to do it. Naruto began to translate the writings as the words glowed one after the other from being read. "The one who unites the people is the champion. He will assemble 10 warriors and they will save the world from the corrupted evil that will soon make itself known throughout the world," Naruto said as the words lighted up. The light show didn't last long before the stone crumbled, revealing a hidden passage. Naruto swam through the entrance and appeared in a remote cavern. Naruto saw the marking of ancient people who were excelling in the many different types of jutsu throughout the world. There was one for taijutsu, genjutsu, kenjutsu, ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, medical jutsu, and many more. Some were even ones that Naruto didn't know about, but he was going to learn about them soon enough. After endless walking, Naruto came up to a door where at the top stopped the one who leads the 10 warriors into battle. The doors opened for Naruto instantly as the blonde walked through. He came up to a small altar that was holding a sword in a black sheath with a dragon scarab. Naruto walked up the stairs to the sword and gripped it tightly before a voice echoed. "This sword is the embodiment of the champion. What is your name?" the voice asked. Naruto, still in his daze, managed to respond with a small, but commanding voice. "I am Naruto Uzumaki. I am the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko," Naruto responded to the unknown voice. "Do you take this sword and all its responsibilities as your own? Will you shoulder the burden of the entire nations and their futures depending on your actions?" the voice asked. Naruto gripped the sword tighter, causing it to glow a bright, white light that seemed to cover him and his body. "I will carry the burden of the champion and will carry out the responsibilities of this sword that I take into my hand. I will use the power given to me for the benefit of the righteous," Naruto said, making the light glow brighter. "Will you forsake all other beliefs and principles, all for the sake of what you know is the right thing to do? Even if the right thing is the hardest thing to do?" the voice asked its last question. Naruto picked up the sword and unsheathed the steel as the light covered the entire cavern in a warm and heartfelt power. "I will walk the path that I have set for myself. I will stick to what's right even if the world turns against me. I will bring the righteous peace and the wicked their destruction. I am the Kitsune champion, Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said, holding the sword up. The light intensified so much that it left the cavern and the pond started to glow. Sasuke continued his training, but gasped when he saw the white light in the pond. Sasuke shielded his eyes from the lights as he wondered what happened to his loser of a teammate. The light soon died down while Sasuke removed his arm from his eyes. The last Uchiha stared at the pond for who knows how long, but saw it starting to bubble and backed up a few feet as he saw Naruto emerge from the pond. Naruto was soaked, but he didn't seem to care about it. Sasuke gasped as he saw a small white aura around Naruto while the blonde carefully walked out of the pond with a glowing sword in his hand. Dobi, Sasuke said as Naruto walked away while sheathing his sword in its sheath. Sasuke ran up to Naruto and placed his hand on his shoulder. Hey Dobi, what the hell happened to you? Sasuke asked. Naruto slightly turned his head to meet Sasuke's gaze and caused the Uchiha to gasp at the pure seriousness and power he saw in those eyes. Sasuke eased his hand off Naruto's shoulder while the blonde turned his head back forward and walked away from the training field. Naruto soon disappeared from view while Sasuke leaned back onto a log post. That power. It's incredible. That's just the type of power I need to defeat Itachi and avenge my clan. Congratulations Dobi, it seems you aren't useless after all, Sasuke said with a hidden smirk. With Naruto. Naruto continued to walk through the streets of Konoha and made it back to his apartment. Naruto opened and closed the door as the light faded from his body. Naruto placed the sword down next to his bed and changed from his wet and soggy jumpsuit into his warm pajamas. Naruto climbed back into his bed and closed his eyes like nothing ever happened and went back to sleep while the sword hummed. The new champion has been chosen. This is the rise of the Kitsune champion, the sword said before growing silent as the room darkened, leaving Naruto to his dreams and to his future adventure. Naruto opened his eyes and stretched himself awake while turning a tired gaze to the gray skies of Konoha. Naruto sighed since he knew it was going to rain today. Yet for some reason Naruto felt more relaxed than tired after yesterday. He felt more at peace with himself since he went to bed early yesterday. Naruto got up from his bed and in the process accidentally knocked over a sword that was laying next to his bed. What's this? Naruto wondered as he picked up the sword. He didn't waste any time and inspected the shiny metal and awed at the calmness he felt from it. Naruto was confused. He was sleeping in his bed and suddenly a sword appears in his room the next day. It all made him wonder what was going on. Naruto placed the sword back down next to his bed before hearing a small voice. Naruto-sama, the voice called out. Naruto turned his head left and right to find the source of the calm voice, but it wasn't anywhere to seen. After some time, Naruto simply shrugged the voice off and went to go wash up before the voice called again. Naruto-sama, it continued to say. Naruto widened his eyes and knew something was calling him. Naruto felt a deep pulse hit him as he gripped his chest. Naruto turned his head slowly like he felt something calling him and gasped when he saw the sword next to his bed pulsating softly. Naruto cautiously walked up to the sword as the pulsating between the both of them grew faster and stronger. Naruto reached out to the sword and softly touched it. Are you calling me? Naruto asked, feeling a little silly that he was talking to an inanimate object. How surprised he was when a white light engulfed him as he disconnected his hands from the sword. The white glow suddenly faded while Naruto saw his hands slightly burned with a small seal on it. Naruto raised an eyebrow in confusion and turned back to the sword. You are my official master Naruto-sama, the voice said to him. Naruto turned back to the sword and gripped it. He slowly took the sword in his hand like he was trying to get a feel for it until the room was engulfed in a light that made the blonde cover his eyes. After some time, Naruto opened his eyes to see a middle-aged man in a white robe walking to him. Naruto raised his senses in case of an attack, but felt a sense of calm that made him wonder if he should rethink doing that. The man continued to walk until he was a few inches from Naruto. It is great to meet you Naruto-sama, he said while Naruto looked around the white space. He figured he was still in his room, but it unnerved the blonde slightly that he couldn't get any sort of bearings. Feeling no other options, Naruto turned back to the man who made a serene smile on his face. Hello. Can I ask you where we are? Naruto asked the mysterious person in front of him. The man smiled with a quick nod before sitting on the floor. Naruto followed his lead and sat on the floor next to him in a lotus position while the two talked. This place is now as a transcended space. It's where I am able to communicate with you face to face. I can tell you have lots of questions. Fortunately, this space's time isn't the same as the real world, so you can take as much time as you'd like in here, he said to the blonde. Naruto marveled at the place along with the explanation that the man gave him before turning back to the man to have his questions answered. All right then, what is your name? Naruto asked him. The man chuckled for a bit before answering. Naruto wondered what was so funny and started to get irritated at his laughing. The man calmed down soon after and looked Naruto in his deep blue eyes. I've been given many names by many different warriors. I've been called Shin no Yaiba, Sword of Death, Tenshi no Yaiba, Angel Sword, and even Kami no Shinpan, Divine Judgment. It all depends on the person who uses me. Generally, you would have to come up with a name since you're my new master, the man said with a sincere smile. Naruto seemed confused by everything and tried his best to understand the man's words. Why do you have these names and say these things like you're a tool? You're reminding me of another person that I met a few days ago after my mission in Wave Country, Naruto said, thinking about that person who was sure could have been his friend. The man's smile faded slightly, but didn't vanish completely and patted Naruto's shoulder. I am a tool, Naruto-sama. The sword that was in your room next to your bed was me. I'm a sentient sword that is now going to help you in your difficult task, the man said to him. Naruto wasn't expecting that of all things for someone to say to him and scratched his head with an agonizing groan. The man chuckled and softly patted Naruto's head, causing the blonde to look up at him. It's a lot of information to take in, Naruto-sama, but try to understand it all. You have been chosen as the next Millennium Champion of this world. A great evil is coming, Naruto-sama, and you must be prepared for it, the man said to him. Naruto widened his eyes at the man's prediction before sitting back to his original position. I'm not sure I understand it all. Will you explain it all to me? Naruto asked him. The man nodded and waved his hand to show Naruto an intense battle scene in front of him. Naruto saw countless people fighting and killing. It all made him sick seeing people waste their lives that way. Naruto knew it was the cruel reality of war, but that didn't mean he had to like it. This is a battle that took place over 1,000 years ago. It was an age where humans were a greedy bunch and could only prove their power by fighting and ending the life of another human. Light and darkness were always in a constant battle, with light always coming out on top. The light chooses one warrior who is more capable than any it can find and uses that person to gather 10 additional warriors who will follow him and conquer the darkness. However, the darkness has always been getting stronger, and I fear that your era is when the darkness is at its highest. Just like the light, the dark will choose one leader, and that leader will chosen 10 warriors who will bring about the destruction of world. Naruto-sama, you are the new leader of the light. It is your destiny to save this world from the destruction that the dark will cause, the man explained. Naruto's world had been blown open by the explanation along with the scenes of all the battles in front of him. The man paused to gauge Naruto's reaction and saw some slight distress in the blonde's eyes, but also a small hint of pride. So you're telling me that some unknown force chose me to be its representative as the light and gather 10 warriors who will follow me at the risk of their lives to battle someone else with will be consumed by the darkness who will have its own forces? Naruto asked for a bit of clarification. The man nodded a bit eagerly, but stopped when he saw Naruto sigh. I'm sorry about this burden being placed on you, Naruto-sama. I believe that you are the greatest person that can combat this foe, and I want to help you accomplish your task. It's impossible for you to do alone, the man told him. Naruto slowly nodded while placing a hand on his stomach. I know about burdens. I've been used to it. Well, I certainly can't let the world be destroyed before I become Hokage, can I? Naruto asked with a laugh. The man raised an eyebrow, but smirked and shook his head. I guess you couldn't do that, Naruto-sama, the man said to him. Naruto nodded and got to his feet and shook the man's hand, much to his surprise. The man gripped Naruto's hand and offered a confused smile, to which Naruto explained. Instead of calling yourself my tool, let's call you my partner in this battle of ours, Naruto said to him. The man's smile changed to a chuckle and then to a full-blown laugh. Naruto raised an eyebrow while the sentient being clutched his sides. Naruto-sama, you quite interesting. No one has ever called me their partner. This is the first time you've called I've been called that. Thank you, he said to the blonde Jinchuriki. Naruto nodded with a sincere smile on his face and broke his connection to the man, but not before asking a question. So just to ask, do you have a gender? Naruto asked him. The man raised an eyebrow, but shook his head in a negative fashion. No, Naruto-sama, I'm a sentient being in a weapon. I'm not male or female. I simply chose this form so I could best represent myself to you. Why do you ask? The man asked the blonde. Naruto gave a blank face and turned his gaze from the man, which caused him to narrow his eyes at his new master. Suddenly the man gasped and pointed at Naruto. Why you want a female sentient being? He asked. Naruto gasped, which told the being all it needed. Suddenly he smirked and shook his head at his new master and preferences. Naruto-sama, you're a pervert, aren't you? He asked. Naruto shook his head fast while backing away from his new partner. What? Now way man, I'm not a pervert. I'm the furthest thing from a pervert, Naruto said while the man laughed some more before shrugging his shoulders at the blonde. I don't really care. I was simply messing with you, Naruto-sama. In truth, some champions have had preferences when it came to my gender or way of showing my appearance to them. So if you want a woman figure, I don't really mind, he said before being engulfed in a light. Naruto tried to object to the fact that he didn't mind, but it was too late as the light faded, showing the new figure. Naruto's jaw hung slightly in the air as he saw a woman with long, white hair that reached her shoulders while wearing a white kimono and white sandals. Is this better, Naruto-sama? The voice asked in a very feminine tone. Naruto could only blush and nod dumbly before the woman placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto looked into her eyes as they continued. So how do I know when I meet my warriors? Or how do I convince them to join me? Naruto asked her. The woman smiled and adopted a thinking pose. Well, Naruto-sama, before can start finding your warriors you need to train more. As it is right now, you need lots of help. As to how you will find them, well, you will simply feel that they are the right person to fight beside you. The people you are sure you can trust with your life. It also helps you to narrow things down. There is ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, fuinjutsu, medical jutsu, kinjutsu, and other skills such as strategics and others. You will feel that these people are the ones who best fulfill these roles more than anyone else. However, before you do that, you must become proficient in all those things yourself. As the leader, you will need the best out of them all. You can't have someone be better than you or they will challenge your authority to lead your group, the woman said to him. Naruto nodded that it made sense. So once they follow me, am I supposed to help us all train together for the day this war comes? Naruto asked her. The woman nodded eagerly, but sat back and gave him a small smile. However, there will come a time where you and your follower will have to forsake your villages and continue on your fight without the interference of your villages and its beliefs, the woman said sadly. Naruto soon frowned and looked at the ground, not being able to say a word. The silence reigned in the space for a while, and it unnerved the sentient being slightly since she knew about his dream of being the village leader. So I won't be able to become Hokage? Naruto asked her. The woman slowly nodded her head, since being a missing nin meant that becoming the Hokage was almost near impossible. Naruto slumped his shoulders in slight depression, but gave her the surest smile that he could muster despite the news. Well, if peace reigns, then I guess I can give up my dream. So long as people are still alive to keep this world safe, I guess I don't mind not being the Hokage. It pisses me off slightly, but I guess this is one of those responsibilities that my dream talked about, Naruto said softly. The woman nodded and decided for a change of topic and gave a smile on her face. So what would you like to call your group? She asked, confusing Naruto even more than he was sure he was. What do you mean? I have to name my group. Naruto asked her. That's right, Naruto-sama. All groups have their names. It's not right that you shouldn't have your own, so come up with a name. I know about your burden, so I'll be right back, the woman said, vanishing, leaving only Naruto in the space. Naruto's mindscape. The woman came up to the cage to see a giant fox behind the bars while it gave an annoyed look to her. I thought my container would be the first to visit me. So who are you and what do you want? The fox creature said to her. The woman gave a smile while the fox raised an eyebrow at her. Right now, I remain unnamed by my master. I have come to ask for your help in bringing peace to the lands that will begin to fall in the future, she said while made the fox laugh at her for a little. You're asking the Kyuubi no Yoko, queen of the demons, to help you and my jailer keep the peace in the lands due to an evil that will try to bring the world to ruin. What are you, silly? Kyuubi said, chuckling. The woman kept up her smile and decided to give the fox her answer. That's exactly what I'm asking you to do for us. I've lived much longer than you, so I know you're not as evil as you try to proclaim to others. So you can drop the tough act in front of me and Naruto-sama. If you want something to gain from it, then you will gain your life. 'Cause if you don't help, then you will die along with Naruto-sama and the rest of this world will fall, the woman said, deciding to play a small guilt trip on the Kyuubi. Oh, how it worked too. Kyuubi silently cursed and sucked her teeth while her tails bashed around the cage that kept her from charging at the sentient being. Fine, I'll help you, but only because I'm not dying by some lowlife human. Once this little war thing is over, I'm going back to being the carefree demons that I want to be, Kyuubi stated. The woman merely nodded and walked away, leaving Kyuubi to her own vices. Pleasure doing business with you, Kyuubi, she said before vanishing. Kyuubi sighed while mentally cursing beings who were obviously stronger than her in the world. Back with Naruto. Naruto paced the empty space for who knows long until he saw the woman in front of him. Naruto narrowed his eyes while the woman chuckled sheepishly. Where did you go? Naruto asked her with more of a commanding voice while the woman smiled at him before giving him her explanation. I was having a talk with your burden. She agreed to help you in this endeavor, she replied as Naruto widened his eyes at her. Naruto checked the seal on his stomach and rubbed his hand over it. You spoke to Kyuubi. Kyuubi's female. Kyuubi's helping. Naruto asked these three questions which caused the sentient woman to laugh. She then nodded while Naruto twirled his head in confusion of the events going on in his life. The woman shook his back to his senses soon enough and gave him a small smile. So what would you like to call your group? And please name me while you at it, the woman nearly begged, causing Naruto to laugh that he hadn't given her a name yet. Naruto adopted a thinking pose for a few seconds to think of a name for his group and for the woman in front of him. Alright, since Kyuubi's going to help, I have the perfect name for us. We'll be called the Kitsune Warriors and you will be called Ain no Hikari, Eternal Light. So I'll call you Hikari-chan, Naruto said with an assuring grin. The woman raised an eyebrow at both names. They definitely weren't bad, but she didn't expect him to come up with the name for his burden. Hikari shrugged her shoulders and smiled. Alright, Naruto-sama. I hope to work well with you in bringing about peace, Hikari said with a bow. Naruto nodded and gave a bow also as the light dissipated and Naruto appeared back in his room. Naruto glanced at the sword in his hand. Hikari-chan. Naruto called for his new partner and friend. Hey Naruto-sama, it seems I can speak telepathically with you, Hikari said to him. Naruto smiled with a nod, but turned his head to see nothing had changed around the room. Hey Hikari-chan, how long were within that space? Naruto asked her. Hikari gave an unseen smile and answered. I said time moves different with that space in the real world. In there, we were talking for about 5 hours, but out here it's only been 15 seconds. It's rather convenient, Hikari said responded. Naruto chuckled with a nod as he set the sentient sword on the bed. Naruto went to take a shower since he had to meet his team somewhere in the next 2 hours. Naruto allowed the warm water to wash over him as he remembered all the things Hikari had told him. Naruto sighed as his life just got weirder, but to him it wasn't much of a bother. This just meant that things were going to get a whole lot more interesting. Naruto exited the shower and changed into his regular jumpsuit and picked up Hikari before seeing the seal on his hand from earlier. Hey Hikari-chan, what is this seal on my hand? I remember touching you for the first time and an aura surrounded me, then this appeared on my hand. Mind telling me what it is? Naruto asked her. Sure Naruto-sama, that seal is the protection seal that I give all the champions. It allows only you to wield me and use me. Anyone else will instantly let go from an intense burning sensation that they will feel on their hands. I don't want to be wielded by anyone other than you, Naruto-sama, Hikari stated to the blonde. Naruto nodded with a smile and strapped Hikari to his back. Naruto-sama. Naruto stopped at the door to hear Hikari call his name. Yes Hikari-chan. Naruto-sama, you really need to change your attire. It's not fitting for a Kitsune champion to wear such clothing, Hikari said while Naruto got depressed from people always nagging about his clothes. Sure, even he said that he needed to get some new clothes, but was orange really that bad of a color to be seen in? I know Hikari-chan. I was going to buy some new clothes today anyway, Naruto said as he closed the door and came into the streets of Konoha. Hikari nodded that he should get some new clothes, but decided to stay silent after since Naruto told her about going to buy something different, much different. After nearly an hour of running, Naruto made it to the meeting spot of his team and decided to bid them all a quick hello. Hey Sakura, hey Tem, Naruto called. Both were surprised by the absence of the chan suffix from Naruto, but didn't mind it too much before both gazed on the sword on his back. Sasuke especially glared at the sword and had a hidden smile on his face as he remembered last night. He remembered how powerful Naruto looked with the sword in his hand. The powerful, white aura that surrounded his body, and finally that stare that made everyone look like they were insignificant insects. Sasuke gleamed at the chance of having such power in his possession and stood to his feet before walking over to Naruto. Hey Dobi, give me that sword. I will use its power to take vengeance on my brother and restore the Uchiha clan to its former glory, Sasuke proudly said with his hand sticking out ready to receive the powerful-looking sword. Hikari sighed in the space and shook her head in disappointment. Great. Another self-righteous Avenger who thinks he's all that. Man, people like that pop up everywhere every year or so. It's such a sad state to be in, Hikari said to herself, but Naruto still heard it and smirked. Naruto turned his gaze back to Sasuke and shook his head. Get lost, duckbutt. This is my sword and it will never accept you as its rightful owner, Naruto said to him. Sasuke seethed, which caused Sakura to jump in and defend her crush. Sakura marched up to Naruto while cracking her knuckles. Naruto baka, give Sasuke-kun that sword right now. He'll be able to use it better than you ever could, Sakura said to him. Naruto rolled his eyes while Hikari groaned from the presence of Naruto's teammates. Naruto-sama, a fangirl. Really? You must really have some bad luck to have a fangirl on your team. It's quite a shame, Hikari said while Naruto tried once again to stifle a laugh of Hikari's jokes on his teammates. Naruto turned to Sakura and narrowed his eyes at her. Yeah, well, Sakura, here is the thing. I will say this nice and slow so you can follow perfectly. Oh, Naruto said slowly for her. Sakura's response was to try to hit Naruto over the head again, but that plan was sent out the window when Naruto managed to sidestep the punch and appear behind Sakura, effectively surprising Sasuke, Sakura, himself, and Kyuubi. Naruto widened his eyes as he had never been able to move like that, not even during his mission in Wave Country was he that fast. Hikari-chan, do you mind explaining this to me? Naruto asked her in a low voice so Sasuke and Sakura couldn't hear him. Hikari gave a devious grin that could match Kyuubi's when they wanted something to be good and funny. Well, Naruto-sama, it sort of happened last night. When you touched me, your body started to undergo a sort of change. Your muscles are now more toned, your intelligence was boosted, your endurance was enhanced. Your body was quite unfit before, so I had to make some adjustments to it. Now, with your body this way, you are able to use one of the many techniques that you will unlock throughout your journey as the Kitsune champion. This technique is the first stage of four-part stage technique. It is called Muga no Kyochi, state of self-actualization. This technique shrouds your entire body in my white aura and doubles everything you have, your jutsu, your power. Everything. However, when it finishes, then you will receive a fair amount of exhaustion from it. Use the technique wisely, cause with your current skill level you can only use it 3 times before being completely exhausted, Hikari advised. Naruto nodded with a smile since Hikari explained it to him. Naruto backed away from Sakura and leaned on the bridge railing while waiting for Kakashi. So does either of you want to try and take my partner again? Naruto said with a glare that made them both not want to try. Naruto smirked and closed his eyes, decided to say hi to someone. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto appeared in seemed to be an underground tunnel with multiple passages. Naruto could hear a distant roar from one of them and grinned since he found what he was looking for. Naruto entered the room to see the large cage holding the Kyuubi behind it. Naruto gave a simple smile and waved while Kyuubi narrowed her eyes at the blonde who finally came to visit. Never thought I'd be able to meet you so soon, Kyuubi-chan, Naruto said to her. Kyuubi glared at Naruto and gave a low growl before turning her gaze from him, which caused the blonde to frown. HMPH, I would say that the feeling was mutual, but even I hate to lie, so I won't. And don't think you can start calling me Kyuubi-chan, just 'cause I agreed to help you and your partner out with this whole saving the world thing. It all leaves a bad taste in my mouth as the queen of the demons, Kyuubi said to her jailer. Naruto chuckled and leaned on one of the bars separating him from her. Naruto wasn't sure why he was compelled to do this, but he just decided he needed to trust someone other than Hikari, and he could talk to Kyuubi anytime, so why not try and make something work for them both? I guess you would feel like that. Nearly all my life I was called what you are, but I know I'm not. Kyuubi, even though we haven't really talked or done anything since, well, now I would like to say sorry, Naruto said, surprising the vixen since that was the last thing she expected from her jailer. Kyuubi narrowed her eyes at Naruto, trying to figure out his little game since she knew that no one changes their views on a person that fast. Naruto's life was living proof of that. What are you playing at, boy? Not that I'd apologize ever to you, but shouldn't this be the other way around? Kyuubi asked him. Naruto shrugged his shoulders before standing to his feet. Naruto took a few deep breaths and passed the bars protecting him from Kyuubi, which astounded the fox demon. Naruto simply walked up to her and placed his hand over her nose and gave it a soft pat and rub. Kyuubi didn't know why, but she wasn't trying to attack him. She knew that he was within her reach and she could conquer him and get out, so why wouldn't she? Kyuubi-chan, I don't know what it's like to be a demon. I definitely know what it's like to be called one, but I'm sorry that you suffered such a fate and have to live with a failure of a shinobi like me, Naruto said, berating himself a bit. Kyuubi's glare softened as she cursed the way he did his apology. Not even she could stay mad at that. Kyuubi gritted her teeth and mentally tried to steel herself through the meaningful apology, but it really wasn't working well for her at all. Kyuubi sighed while looking at her container. Stop berating yourself, Kit. It's unbefitting for the human who holds the queen of the demons. Don't take it personally, but my relationships with you humans is a strained one, and being in this situation has strained it a lot more, but it isn't your fault, I guess. I'm sorry too, Kyuubi said, putting the last part in an extra low voice. Naruto's eyes suddenly gleamed as he turned to Kyuubi with his smile in full bloom in front of her. What did you say, Kyuubi-chan? Naruto asked her in eagerness. Kyuubi mentally cursed that she had to say the two most accursed that took breath from her mouth again. I'm sorry, Kyuubi said in a little louder voice, but Naruto still couldn't hear it, though how he couldn't since he was in front of a giant fox was anyone's guess. Naruto cupped his ear while facing Kyuubi for one more clarification. What was that, Kyuubi-chan? Naruto asked with a devious grin across his face. Kyuubi's eye twitched in annoyance of her jailer as she knew he would live this moment up for as long as he could. Kyuubi really did have more than half a mind to maul the blonde boy right in front of her, but she knew it was the right thing to do, even if it did make her sick to her stomach for saying such words again. Oh Kami Kit, I said I'm sorry. I'm sorry that your life was a living hell because of me. I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused you and your village, and I'm sorry that you're alone. I'm just sorry, okay? Kyuubi said, nearly yelling with a slightly growing blush going across her face. Naruto gave the biggest grin of his life and simply crashed into Kyuubi's nose, trying his best to give her a hug. Kyuubi sighed and simply accepted the kind of sickening gesture since she didn't find it so bad. Naruto released himself from Kyuubi after the hug and turned to her. Is there a possibility that we can be friends? I'd like to know more about the Queen of the Demons, Naruto said to her. Kyuubi turned her eyes to avoid Naruto's gaze while the blonde lowered his eyes to the watery bottom in some sadness and disappointment. Well, that's alright, I guess. We just met, so I don't think you'd take kindly to me already, Naruto said as he turned to leave. Kyuubi's gaze turned to his retreating form from the cage and gritted her teeth while her claws clenched in her confined space. Fine, Kit. I'll take the benefit of the doubt and give you a shot. As I told you, I don't necessarily like you humans, and I don't trust you as far as I can throw you, which is very far, by the way. However, I'll admit that you're not like most humans, so I'll give you a shot. Don't ruin it. Once you lose my trust, you will not get it back ever again. Got it? Kyuubi asked him, still wondering why she was going through this with her container. Naruto turned around and smiled with a definite nod while he pumped a fist in the air. I promise not to lose your trust, Kyuubi-chan. I'll show you that I'm not like those who only deceive and betray others. Thank you for trusting me, Naruto told her. Kyuubi snorted, but more as a simple, yeah sure or whatever, to his statement. If you really want to thank me, then at least let me have access to your senses, Kit. It's dull being in this damn cage with nothing to do, at least let me see and smell the world again, Kyuubi said, more as a whine than a command. Naruto chuckled while Kyuubi glared at him. Does Kyuubi-chan want to be out of her cage? Naruto asked with the full intent on teasing the Queen of Demons. Kyuubi stared to glare ice daggers at the boy, but couldn't since she found the joke slightly funny even if she didn't show the expression on her face. HMPH, don't be mean, Kit. I'm not asking for much here, Kyuubi said to him. Naruto sheepishly chuckled while rubbing the back of his head as he approached the humongous vixen. Naruto looked at the seal that kept her cage in check and elevated himself to the top. He took a small piece of the seal and was about to tear it before turning to Kyuubi. Here is my way of saying I trust you. From now on I hope to work well with you, Kyuubi-chan, Naruto said as he tore a small piece of the seal off. Kyuubi gave a small smile and took a big whiff of the air outside. Ah, that smells nice. I guess you're not a bad kid after all. Alright then, stay in telepathic contact with me if you want to talk, but not now. I want to sleep, Kyuubi said before curling into a ball. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the giant fox and could only mutter words like, lucky, or, that fox has the sweetest deal right now. All the inner comments made Kyuubi chuckle as her container left her alone. Kyuubi opened one eye to see he was gone and gave a small smile again. Yep, not a bad kid after all, Kyuubi said as she closed her eyes and went to sleep. Outside the mindscape, Naruto opened his eyes just in time to see Kakashi standing on the bridge railing while looking at his 3 genin. Yo, he said, which caused Sakura to yell at him for being late while making the 3 guys wince from her voice. Come on Sakura, calm down. I have just nominated you all for the Chunin exams, Kakashi said while handing them 3 slips of paper. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes gleamed, but Sakura's were a little unsettled since she wasn't really confident in her skills as a kunoichi. Report to the exam hall at 9 o'clock sharp, Kakashi said with an eye smile before disappearing from view. Naruto smirked and walked off, leaving Sakura and Sasuke to their own vices. Finally, a chance to show what I'm made of. Look out, Chunin exams, you're about to get hit by a maelstrom named Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said before passing a clothes store. Naruto looked at his current attire and sighed, since he did tell Hikari that he would get some new clothes and get out of the orange monstrosity that Hikari said it was. Naruto entered the clothes store and it surprised him that he wasn't with any glares, so he simply decided not to waste this advantage and quickly went through the clothes stores. Naruto looked around and grabbed a black jacket with a red swirl on the back along with orange stripes on the shoulders. He should be allowed to have some kind of orange even if it was a little right. Alright, now for some pants and some new kunai and shuriken sets, Naruto thought as he looked around. Naruto quickly took 4 shuriken sets and 3 kunai sets. He also found some black anbu pants that were his perfect size. They were fitted comfortably around his waist and held hidden spaces for any standard shinobi to use in battle for an advantage. Naruto looked around one more time before taking some civilian clothes for everyday use and things like that. And last, he took one more pair of the same jacket and pants and took the bundle to the register. Please ring this up, sir, Naruto asked him. The man spared a glance at Naruto and shrugged his shoulders while he scanned everything. The man wasn't oblivious to the names the blonde was called, but he was a neutral standpoint. For him, Naruto was simply a shinobi doing his duty. He wasn't going to overcharge the boy or kick him out, but it wasn't any special exceptions either. To the man, demon or not, money was money and he needed it. Having finished everything, the man turned to Naruto with the same lazy look on his face. The total cost of everything here is 6,556 yen and 50 sen, the man said to him. Naruto nodded with a grin and pulled out his wallet to pay for everything. Naruto gave the man his money and left with his bags in his hands. It didn't take long for him to unload all of his things in his apartment before setting out again. Let's see, what do I do now? Naruto wondered, but turned his head to see a small kid along with a clown-masked dude and a good-looking girl with a battle fan. Naruto sighed as he walked over to the little scuffle between them. Kankuro, stop it, he's just a kid. You're gonna get us in trouble, the fangirl said to him. Shut up, Tamari. I'm gonna show this kid how to respect his elders, Kankuro while pulling his fist back, but stopped when everyone heard a voice. Hey Konohamaru, it seems you're in trouble again, Naruto said with a smile. Konohamaru suddenly smiled as he looked at his idol and rival. Boss, he said while Naruto turned his gaze to the other two people. I don't think you'll be doing good by hitting the Hokage's grandson, Naruto said, which made Kankuro gasp along with Tamari. Tamari glared at Kankuro, but not before knocking the clown upside the head. Damn it, Kankuro, I told you. See what the hell you almost did, Tamari said with Kankuro about to protest, but was stopped by a pebble and thus dropping Konohamaru to the ground. Naruto turned his gaze to see Sasuke upside down on a tree branch and smirked. Nice to see you too, Tem. Please stop trying to show off, Naruto said before glancing a bit to his right. Though you should watch out for others, Naruto said to him. Ever since he got the boost from Hikari, Naruto felt so many different things. Naruto could better sense people who he normally couldn't. He could see farther, hear better, and even think better than when he didn't have her with him. Sasuke turned his head to see a redhead with a gourd on his back and a tattoo on his head that read, Love, on it. The kid turned a glare to Kankuro, making the boy gulp. Kankuro stopped this stupidity at once. You're a disgrace to Suna, he said while the other boys seemed nearly speechless. But Gaara, this brat. Shut up or I'll kill you, he said before he shunshined and appeared between his teammates. I'm sorry for his behavior. What is your name? He asked as Sasuke stood forward. I am Sasuke Uch, not you, the blonde who sensed me in the tree a few minutes ago, Gaara said while Naruto walked up. It's polite to offer your name before asking for others, Naruto said with a simple shrug. Gaara glared at the blonde, but in the end he nodded and spoke. I am Sabaku no Gaara, now who are you? He asked with a bit of haste in his voice that Naruto picked up on. I am Naruto Uzumaki. I take it you're here for the Chunin exams? Naruto asked him. Gaara nodded while Naruto turned to the blonde next to him. And who's the hottie next to you? Naruto asked while Tamari blushed and Kankuro seethed. Hey, that's my sister you're talking about, Kankuro said, which earned him a slap on the head. Shut up, Kankuro, he only wanted my name. Sorry, I am Sabaku no Tamari and this is my brother, Sabaku no Kankuro. Nice to meet you, cutie, Tamari said with a slight wink. Naruto chuckled and turned to Gaara. Naruto narrowed his eyes since thanks to Hikari he felt something evil about the boy, but underneath the evil he saw something else. Seeing that made Naruto smile while Gaara turned to leave. I look forward to fighting you in the Chunin exams, Naruto Uzumaki, Gaara said as he and his team left. Naruto gave a small grin before connecting to Hikari. Hey Hikari-chan, I think I just found my first warrior, Naruto said with an excited grin. Hikari chuckled while looking at the retreating Gaara kid that Naruto just talked to. So Naruto-sama, you think he'll fight with you? Yes I do, Hikari-chan, there is something about him. I don't know what it is, but it's like despite his cold demeanor and evil presence, I can feel some sort of light fall off him. I definitely think he would be good, Naruto said with a smile. Well then Naruto-sama, if you fight him, go test him out and confirm your suspicions about him. I'll be at your ready use whenever you want, Hikari said before cutting the connection. Naruto smirked while turning to leave and spared a glance at an irritated Sasuke before turning back to the road in front of him. This is gonna be fun, Naruto said before disappearing from view. Naruto walked towards the exam hall for the Chunin exams after his encounter with Gaara as he joined up with his teammates. Sakura and Sasuke watched Naruto show up and awed his new clothes instead of the orange mask that he used to wear. Due to being asked on countless dates by Naruto, Sakura could only come to the delusional conclusion that the blonde idiot was trying to look cool in front of her and drag her away from Sasuke. Hey Dobi, it seems you actually have some fashion sense in your tiny, little brain, Sasuke said, doing his best to mess with Naruto. He, however, didn't get his desired reaction as Naruto passed him and Sakura without so much of a word, only offering a glare that made Sasuke shut his mouth. Sakura, unfortunately, wasn't so bright for the smartest kunoichi and decided to say something also. Naruto baka, what's with those clothes? I already told you I won't go out with you. Stop trying to draw me away from Sasuke-kun, you will never be as good as him, Sakura yelled until both saw Naruto stop in mid-step of some stairs he was walking. Naruto sighed and turned to the pink howler monkey of a teammate and decided to make a certain fact known and make it known now. Listen up, Sakura. I'm not the same idiot that you think I am. I might have had a crush on you, but unlike you I see someone for who they really are, so if you'll do me a favor and shut up I'll appreciate it, Naruto said before walking up the stairs, leaving a shocked Sakura and Sasuke behind. Sasuke and Sakura snapped out of their stupor and followed Naruto up the stairs until they saw a crowd of people yelling at two kids who were guarding it. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the two and decided to ask for some help from his new friend. Hey Kyuubi-chan, do you sense anything wrong with this picture? Naruto muttered so as not to arouse suspicion. Kyuubi stirred and turned a tired eye to the events that Naruto was talking about before closing it back in a groan of low-level techniques. It's just a stupid genjutsu trick kit. You're not of the third floor yet. You're still on the second. Man, the lot of these humans are so damn stupid, Kyuubi said with a huff before disconnecting from Naruto. Naruto raised an eyebrow, but paid it no mind and passed all of the genin without much fuss and walked up the stairs, but then cursed as he forgot he had an egotistical teammate. Hey, drop the damn genjutsu. This is only the second floor. We still need to go up a floor, Sasuke said with an arrogant grin while people figured it out until someone pointed at Naruto. Then you should follow your teammate, He's obviously the only capable one since he figured it out, one of them said while Naruto slightly blushed. He couldn't really take all that credit, but it made it worth it to see Sasuke grit his teeth in a few questionable glares. Suddenly a boy in a weird jumpsuit came up to Sasuke and Sakura while Naruto decided to go back down and talk to the genin who obviously had even worse fashion sense than him. Hello, you are Sasuke Uchiha, correct? Then let us have a match, the genin said, which caused Sasuke to smirk at the ignorance of the man. Who the hell are you? Sasuke asked, which made the strangely dressed boy gave a thumbs up and a sparkling smile. I am Rock Lee. I am here to prove that a genius can be defeated by a person who excels at hard work, Lee said. Sasuke grinned then laughed slightly, finding the weird guy to be both ignorant and funny. You know I'm an Uchiha and yet you still wish to fight me. You're quite bold to want to face me, Sasuke said as they went to a single sparring room. Naruto decided to watch the fight since he felt he could get a read on someone he might want as a warrior. Sasuke closed his eyes for a few seconds then opened them to show the prized dojutsu, the Sharingan. Lee narrowed his eyes at the intimidating sight of the dojutsu that made people grovel at the feet of the Uchiha. So that's the Sharingan. I hope you will give me a good workout, Lee said to him. Sasuke smirked as he launched himself at Lee and let out a punch, but gasped when he didn't hit anything. Sasuke turned his head fast to see Lee behind him and widened his eyes. What the hell? How is he this fast? Sasuke wondered before getting kicked into the air. Sakura gasped along with Naruto while Lee appeared behind Sasuke and unwrapped his bandages. It seems you are too weak, Sasuke Uchiha. I thought you'd be more of a challenge, Lee said as he was nearly finished with his technique, but was stopped by what looked to be a talking turtle. Lee, how could you try to use that move? I must inform your sensei about this, the turtle said while Lee paled. Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke raised an eyebrow at what the turtle meant, but soon smoke appeared and out of it came an overgrown Lee with massive eyebrows that made Team 7 widen their eyes in disgust. Sweet mother of Kami. What the hell is up with those eyebrows? Naruto asked mentally, which caused Hikari and Kyuubi to look at what he was talking about. Hikari gasped while Kyuubi twitched an eyebrow. That's not normal, the sentient being and Kitsune Vixen thought simultaneously. Hey everybody, are ya feelin' the youth? He asked as Lee bowed his head to the man. Guy sensei, it is good to see you, Lee said, but was interrupted by a punch that sent him flying into the wall. Naruto rubbed the bridge of his nose while wondering what the hell these people were doing. Sasuke and Sakura wondered the same thing while they watched the Jonin walk over to Lee. Lee, you fool. How could you use that technique? I told you not to unless I approved of it, Guy said, reprimanding his look-alike. Lee bowed his head and gave a cry. Guy sensei, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have disobeyed you, Lee said, crashing into Guy's arm in a hug. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura paled while the two men, if they could be considered that, give each other the hug. It's okay, but you disobeyed me. You will run 50 laps around Konoha on your hands and I'm gonna join you. Yes, Guy sensei, I have learned my lesson. Lee, Guy sensei, Lee, Guy sensei, Lee, Guy sensei. Everyone gasped too much as they saw a sunset genjutsu appear with both of the men in a very awkward hug that made Naruto, Kyuubi, and Hikari mentally lose it. My eyes. My beautifully red, slitted eyes. Turn away, Kit, turn away. Kyuubi yelled for her container to get out of the genjutsu before her eyes melted from their sockets. Hikari remained silent for a little while longer before giving her input. That might be the one thing that could drive the darkness away faster than even I could. It's a most terrifying genjutsu, Hikari said as Naruto snapped out of the genjutsu as the two guys let go. Naruto dropped to the floor and shuddered while talking to Kyuubi. Suppress it, Kyuubi-chan. Suppress it now. Naruto yelled while Kyuubi immediately got to work on destroying the memory from Naruto's mind so that it would never be seen again. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief while Sasuke nursed his wounded pride with some unneeded help from Sakura. Team 7 soon left Guy and Lee to their own vices and walked up to the door to see Kakashi waiting for them. Kakashi gave them an eye smile and walked up to them. So it seems that all of you are here, Kakashi said while Naruto raised an eyebrow at the reason for their sensei being here. Kakashi-sensei, what are you doing here? Naruto asked him. Kakashi turned his gaze to Naruto and smiled. Well, I just wanted to see if all of you had the guts to come here. If all three of you didn't come here, well, you would have been disqualified. You succeed together or you fail together, Kakashi said while Naruto and Sasuke unconsciously turned to Sakura. Sakura felt her world crumble under their gazes, but didn't say anything. Well, we're all here so there's nothing to worry about, Naruto said lifting up Sakura's spirits if only slightly. Kakashi nodded and stepped aside allowing the team access to the doors. Well, you three. Go in there and show everyone what Team 7 is made of, Kakashi told them. All three nodded and watched as Kakashi disappeared. Naruto smirked as the three walked inside towards the Chunin exams. All three were suddenly met with sharp gazes that made them wince at the low-level ki from the fellow competitors. Man, there sure are a lot of people here. I wonder what's going to happen, Sakura said before seeing Naruto shaking. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at the blonde figuring that Naruto couldn't handle the pressure. Sasuke nearly sneered that he thought Naruto was going to bring them down due to his cowardice, but suddenly Naruto shot up with a grin that could have made any eccentric person proud. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm gonna beat the crap out of each and every single late one of you people, Naruto said as he pointed at everyone. Everyone narrowed their eyes at him while Sakura face-palmed herself and Sasuke smirked. Kyuubi had to chuckle at her container's brash attitude since she was like that herself. Hikari chuckled at the thought of having such a master like Naruto willing to challenge everyone. It was all a good sign. Man, so troublesome. Could you be any more loud? A certain lazy genius said rubbing the back of his head with a yawn. Naruto chuckled while he turned to the boy. Nice to see you too, Shikamaru. I didn't think you'd be here. Let me guess, your mother persuaded you? Naruto asked him. Shikamaru rolled his eyes and simply shrugged his shoulders. You hit the dot right on the head, Naruto. It's all too damn troublesome to me, Shikamaru said while Naruto sighed. Hang in there, buddy, Naruto said as he turned his head to see Sakura and a blonde girl fighting over Sasuke and a fat, big-boned kid eating some potato chips. Hey Choji, still eating? Naruto asked, but Choji didn't hear him over the sound of crunching chips. Naruto's sweat dropped, but ignored it when he heard three more people coming over. Well, it looks like everyone's here, Shikamaru said looking at Team 8. Kiba, Hinata, and Shino nodded while everyone engaged in casual talk before a silver-haired man came over. You guys are so damn dense. Don't you know how tense everyone is? He asked them with most of the group looking at the intense stares of people. Sasuke smirked, but narrowed his eyes towards the new participant. Who the hell are you? Sasuke asked while the man adjusted his glasses and gave a slight bow to the rookies. I'm Kabuto Yakushi. I've taken the Chunin exams before so I thought I'd help the rookies out, Kabuto said to them. Everyone raised an eyebrow, but only Naruto had to be suspicious since he got some information from Kyuubi and Hikari. Kid, be careful. That guy isn't normal. His chakra feels sinister and he smells of snakes. Stay away from him, Kyuubi said with Hikari putting her sense into the warning also. I agree with Kyuubi, Naruto-sama. That Kabuto man has a horrid and vile nature. If I didn't know better I'd say he was likely the cause of the darkness, but I'm sure something more sinister is out there, Hikari said giving her warning also. Naruto took both warnings into account before turning his gaze back to the genin. Well, I can give you information on people in this tournament. I'm sure you have someone you want to know about, Kabuto said holding out a stack of cards. Sasuke smirked and came forward. I want Sabaku no Gaara and Rock Lee, Sasuke said as everyone switched their gazes to him. Kabuto slightly pouted and took up two cards. Ah, you know their names. That's no fun, Kabuto said before applying chakra to the cards while the appropriate information came in. Let's see. Sabaku no Gaara. His teammates are Sabaku no Tamari and Sabaku no Konkuro. He's done 3 C rank missions, 5 B rank missions and 3 A rank missions and 1 S rank mission. Apparently in all of them he hasn't gotten one scratch on him in any of his mission, Kabuto stated, unnerving the genin slightly. Naruto's face gleamed at those words. Gaara really sounded tough and a perfect candidate to be recruited into Naruto's group. Yep. No doubt about it. I want Gaara on my team. I know he'll join. I'm not sure how I can convince him, but I'll get him to join, Naruto said to himself, which caused Hikari to chuckle. Kabuto pulled out the next card and read the information. Next is Rock Lee. His teammates are Tenten and Neji Hyuga. He's done 25 D rank missions and 3 C rank missions. Apparently he is the strongest taijutsu genin in Konoha. It's astounding, Kabuto said while Sasuke smirked at receiving the information that could ensure his next victory against the oddly dressed genin. Suddenly everyone was brought to attention when a man with a bandana on his head came in with a group of what appeared to be Chunin and few jonin. Alright, sit down and shut the hell up. My name is Ibiki. I am your proctor for this part of the exam. Don't try start to cry after you fail, Ibiki said with a grin that made everyone shudder. Naruto and the other rookies all went to their seats while some Chunin scattered into seats surrounding the groups. Everyone felt the pressure from being watched before Ibiki explained the rules. Alright, I will explain the rules. This will be a written exam. There is to be no cheating. Anyone caught cheats 5 times will fail these exams. There is a total of 9 questions. After a set time, a 10th question will be given. Try to survive during that time, Ibiki said with a devious grin and passed out the papers. After everyone was given their papers, Ibiki looked at the clock and smirked. Begin, Ibiki yelled. The clock started and everyone began writing. Sasuke found the purpose to the test easy and simply copied the person in front of him with his Sharingan. Sakura had a bit more trouble, but she wasn't the top kunoichi in Konoha for nothing. It was mainly because of her book smarts that she was able to do well. Naruto, on the other hand, wasn't doing so well. Damn it, I'm screwed. I hate written exams. How the hell am I supposed to do this? I'm gonna fail. What the hell am I going to do now? Naruto yelled out mentally as he gripped his head. For Kyuubi and Hikari, watching squirm was slightly funny, but they weren't going to let him suffer. Well, Hikari wasn't. Kyuubi simply would have helped since Naruto was her first friend in a long time. Alright Kit, I'll help you out. I'm sure me and Hikari can do this exam easily. Let us take a glance at the exam, Kyuubi told him. Naruto nodded and held up his exam paper slightly so Kyuubi and Hikari could see the questions. Okay, question 1. If a kunai normally travels at 35 miles per hour, and the target is 1.5 miles away, at what speed would a person need throw it for the kunai to reach target C at 2 miles? Kyuubi said, repeating the question on the paper. Hikari adopted a thinking pose for a few minutes and contemplated the question along with Kyuubi while Naruto waited for them to answer. Doesn't some of that depend on the type of shinobi throwing the weapon? Also take in the time of battle, then state of conscious activity and the type of affinity they have. Yes, but it's a normal shinobi. They didn't put anything else in this question, so that answer should be 89 miles per hour, Kyuubi said, and Naruto wrote that answer down. This rest of the team went down the same way until Naruto was finished. The blonde Jinchuriki sighed as he only had 3 spare minutes left since Kyuubi and Hikari had an intense debate over the answers to some of the questions. Number 12 fail. Numbers 45 and 63 fail, Ibiki hollered. Said team left the room in depression that they couldn't do better. 8 more teams were caught by Ibiki and his examiners. The last 3 minutes passed before Ibiki's gruff voice spoke again. Alright, stop. Put your pens and pencils down. We will now begin the 10th question, but first I want to know if you want to attempt to answer this question, Ibiki said, which made everyone look at him rather strangely. What do you mean? What happens if we don't answer it? Sakura asked, drawing Ibiki's stare and also his sadistic smile to her face. Sakura gulped since she felt she wasn't going to like the answer to her question. Well, of course, you fail, Ibiki said like it was the simplest thing in the world to say to a bunch of Chunin applicants. Well then of course we're going to take the question. Why wouldn't we? Tamari asked, bringing Ibiki's gaze to her and the rest of the genin. However, if you get this question wrong, well, you will stay genin for the rest of your natural lives, Ibiki said, causing an uproar from everyone in the room. What the hell? That's completely unfair, Sakura screeched, as did everyone else, but they were all silenced by Ibiki's ki and didn't say another word. Shut the hell up. My exam, my rules. You're all just really unlucky to have me for a proctor this year, Ibiki told them. Everyone, reluctantly, nodded and quieted down. Soon after, 10 more teams left the room due to weak-hearted teammates. Everyone tensed under Ibiki, until they saw the man with a smile. Looks like that's it, Ibiki said before uttering his new news to the groups of people. Good job everyone. You pass, Ibiki said, completely making everyone widen their eyes and drop their jaws at him. What do you mean we pass? What about the 10th question? Sakura asked, which caused Ibiki to chuckle. There was no 10th question. That was to test your resolve to become Chunin. The others who are failed weren't ready for the difficult task of becoming Chunin. The written portion was simply to test your information gathering skills. It made you need to cheat to pass. In the shinobi world, information is crucial. Ibiki stopped for a second and undid his bandana to show countless battle scars and wounds. Everyone gasped, but stayed quiet as Ibiki continued. A person will not always have the luxury of choosing their missions. Those who would rather avoid combat and have their men live to fight another day, well, they will never be called shinobi, not as long as I'm here. However, that isn't the case. You all made it and came go with your heads held high, Ibiki said, causing cheers to erupt from everyone in the room. Naruto chuckled and thanked Kyuubi and Hikari for their help in the test. Think nothing of it, Kit. It adds fulfillment to my boring life in this cage, Kyuubi said before going back to sleep. Naruto chuckled, then made a mental note to change that mindscape for his friend, since the Queen of Demons didn't deserve to be in a damp sewer, though some people might disagree. Suddenly a giant cloth came through the door, surprising everyone in the room as they stuck to the floor and ceiling while holding up a banner along with a purple-haired woman in a trench coat. Hello Gakis. I'm the single and sexy Anko Midarashi at your service. You haven't seen anything yet, now follow me to the next stage of the exams. Anko yelled while she pumped her fist into the air. Everyone's sweat dropped while Naruto chuckled until Ibiki came from behind the curtain of the banner. You're still early, Ibiki said, causing Anko to give an embarrassed chuckle. She suddenly looked around the room and groaned at the sight of so many people still left. Damn Ibiki, 34 people made it. You're losing your touch, Anko said to him. Ibiki shrugged his shoulders with a sigh before turning back to the rest of the people. Either that or we have a stronger batch this year, Ibiki proudly stated. Anko smirked with a nod, before that smirk turned deadly. Well, when I'm done, more than half of this group will be dead, Anko said, getting the desired reaction, which was to scare the living hell out of everyone. Alright Gaki, you've had it easy, but not anymore. Follow me to training ground number 44. Those who are late will fail, Anko said, jumping out of the crater in the wall. Everyone soon followed out while Ibiki collected the paper. Ibiki stopped at Naruto's paper and could only smile. This is the dead last. He got every answer correct. Maybe there's more to him than anyone knows. Naruto Uzumaki, an interesting boy, Ibiki said before leaving. Training ground number 44. Anko arrived at the field with plenty of time to spare and decided to have some tea and dango before having her fun with the applicants. After about 30 minutes, people began to arrive as Anko held up some sheets of paper. What the hell are these? Someone asked her. Anko smirked while holding up the forms. These are your regulation forms. They state that if you die during the Chunin exams, then Konoha isn't responsible for the incident. It's used to avoid war, Anko said to them all. Everyone nodded and began to fill out the forms until Anko collected each slip of paper, then put them away in a safe pile. Alright then, let's get started. This is training ground number 44 of Konoha's training facility, or as we like to call it, the Forest of Death, Anko said with a sadistic smile. Everyone silently gulped while Anko turned her head to see Naruto muttering to himself, most likely talking to Hikari or Kyuubi. Anko suddenly got a gleam in her eye and threw a kunai at the blonde, wanting to pierce his cheek in order to scare the others. Naruto-sama, look out for the kunai. Hikari warned as Naruto dodged the kunai with slight ease. Anko narrowed her eyes at him and threw another, but it still didn't hit while, needless to say, she was getting frustrated. Anko shunshined behind Naruto with another kunai in her hand, but stopped when she saw the tip of Naruto's sword aimed at her throat. Now Anko-san, why are you trying to hurt me? Naruto asked her with a sly grin. Anko chuckled and rested her arm on Naruto's shoulder. Well, it seems that you can handle yourself, Gaki. I clearly underestimated you, Anko said with a grin. Naruto chuckled, then narrowed his eyes at the snake mistress before speaking. Well, you know, underestimating someone can mean death. This is a clear case of that, Naruto said to her. Anko chuckled with a nod before both Naruto and Anko took out a kunai each and aimed them at the person behind Anko. Sorry to startle you. I just wanted to return your kunai, the woman said to Anko. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the woman while Anko thanked her and decided to put the kunai away. Naruto took his kunai away also and shrugged before Anko continued. The goal here is to make it to the center of the forest where there is a watchtower. You have 5 days to get there, but you must have each of these, Anko said, lifting up 2 scrolls. This is a heaven scroll and this is an earth scroll. One team will have one and the other team will have the other. The objective is to grab both scrolls and make it to the center. Oh, and one more thing. Don't open these scrolls till you make it to the watchtower, Anko said as more of an order than a suggestion. Everyone nodded and took to the gates. Begin, Anko said as the gates opened. People ran inside and Team 7 disappeared from view. Anko smirked as she leaned on top of the fence and took a bite of more dango. Suddenly she heard screams coming from the forest, then smiled. Wow, that must be a new record for dying, Anko said with a shrug before leaving. With Team 7, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura had just finished fighting off a group of AIM shinobi and went deeper into the forest before it got too dark. Man, this place is creepy, Sakura said, standing close to Sasuke. Naruto rolled his eyes at the act while the team rested on the ground. So what now? Should we wait till tomorrow to fight? Naruto asked. Sasuke adopted a thinking pose before answering. We should be alright for right now. We will have one of us post the first watch and it will rotate every 3 hours until morning, Sasuke said to them. Naruto and Sakura nodded while Sasuke took the first shift. Naruto and Sakura slept on the ground while Sasuke watched the enormous tree swaying around. 2 hours later, Sasuke suddenly sensed a presence and saw the same woman that was in the conversation between Anko and Naruto. She had a sadistic look on her face before moving through some hand signs. The wind soon picked up as Sasuke shook Naruto and Sakura awake. All three barely made it out of the way of the wind and took to a thick tree branch. What the hell? Who is this lady? Naruto asked while Hikari shivered. Naruto-sama, be careful, that person feels so vile. It makes the other person look sweet. I doubt that person is human anymore, Hikari stated while Naruto gasped. The woman smirked and turned her gaze to Sasuke. My Sasuke, are you running away? It's no wonder you can't defeat Itachi, the woman said, which made Sasuke seethe and his Sharingan flared. The woman gave a mock-shocked expression before licking her long tongue through her lips. Oh my, the Sharingan. Magnificent. Truly magnificent. However, it's wasted on this pathetic village. Sasuke-kun, come with me and I can give you power, the woman said to him. Sasuke narrowed his eyes while Sakura seemed too scared to try and say anything. Naruto cursed, but this was as good a time as any to try his first fight with Hikari. Remember Naruto-sama, you can only use Muga no Kyochi 3 times before you are exhausted of your chakra. Each state lasts for about 20 minutes, so make it count, Hikari said to him. Naruto nodded fast and took out Hikari before charging at the woman. Sorry, but the tem isn't going with you or anyone else, Naruto said, swinging Hikari at the woman. The woman countered with her own sword as Naruto gritted his teeth. Damn, I don't really know anything about swords, so I'm not sure how to go about this, Naruto thought, but was interrupted by Hikari. Naruto-sama, use the technique. It will give you a brief ability to use me effectively. When you survive, you should find a teacher. Of course I could teach you, but not the best way. Could you teach him Kyuubi? Hikari asked. Kyuubi sighed and shrugged her shoulders. I guess so. I'm not much of a sword fanatic, but I can give him training against at least Chunin level opponents. After that he needs a master, Kyuubi said, which Naruto nodded. Due to their individual weight, the woman easily dispatched Naruto into a tree as the blonde dropped with a hard thud. Well, someone's eccentric. Wait your turn, Kyuubi brat, she spoke. Naruto slowly stood to his feet while Sasuke and Sakura thought he was insane for fighting someone clearly out of their league. Who the hell are you? Naruto asked. The woman chuckled and gave all three an intense ki that made them all unable to move. I am Orochimaru, one of the three legendary Sannin, Orochimaru said with a sinister chuckle. Naruto raised an eyebrow before Kyuubi explained that he was an ex-Konoha shinobi, but was caught doing sinister experiments on human people and animals. She also told him an interesting fact that made Naruto wince. You're known to target little boys? Naruto asked the snake Sannin. Orochimaru's eyebrow twitched while even in the situation Sasuke and Sakura had to laugh at the joke. Orochimaru seethed and drew his sword before charging at Naruto. I've had enough of you, insolent mouth, Orochimaru said, looking for a death blow. Naruto struggled to his feet and gave a hidden smirk as his sword started to glow. Alright then. Let's try it out. Muga no Kyochi, Naruto said mentally as the sword glowed brighter and bathed him in a small white aura that even made Orochimaru gasp. Sasuke and Sakura stared at the aura surrounding Naruto and physically settled down. It felt so calm and reassuring that the ki from Orochimaru started to disappear. Naruto gripped his sword tightly before turning back to Orochimaru. Alright then, hubby Tem, show me how a real Sannin fights, Naruto said as he charged Orochimaru with his newfound power. Orochimaru smirked, but it didn't last long as Naruto instantly disappeared from view. Everyone gasped before they heard a hard clash come from the middle of the field. Naruto smirked while Orochimaru narrowed his eyes at the power that Naruto possessed. Kukuku, this child might actually be interesting, Orochimaru thought as he felt the pressure of Naruto's technique. Naruto felt so incredible. He was literally on air. It's like was in complete peace with everything while fighting Orochimaru. Alright then, let's kick it up a notch, Naruto said as he pivoted his foot and tried to kick Orochimaru. Orochimaru easily dodged the kick, but a punch came twice as fast, sending the Sannin into a tree. Naruto turned to Sasuke and narrowed his eyes. Hey Tem, I hope you're not scared cause I could use some help here, Naruto said until he was kicked into another tree by Orochimaru. Naruto cursed as he felt the left side of his body shatter from that kick. Naruto breathed slowly as the light shifted to his left side and healed the injury. He soon turned back to see the Sannin walking towards him. Naruto stood to his feet, but fell back down. What's going on? Naruto wondered. Orochimaru smirked while inching towards Naruto. I messed up your center of balance, Naruto-kun. You won't be standing straight for a while, Orochimaru said, which made Naruto curse. Orochimaru was about to attack again, but was interrupted. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, Sasuke yelled as he sent the giant fireball at Orochimaru. Orochimaru easily dodged the shot before seeing Sasuke in front of Naruto. You really are a loser. Do I have to do everything? Sasuke asked with a smirk. Naruto chuckled softly before standing to his feet and feeling slightly wobbly. Hey, you were the one scared like a cat after that key, Naruto said while Sasuke shrugged his shoulders. Sasuke took out a kunai and charged at Orochimaru while Naruto recovered his sense of balance. Sasuke let out a kick only to have it dodged by Orochimaru. The Uchiha decided to go a different route and flipped over the snake Sannin while his Sharingan blazed. Orochimaru took his eyes off Naruto for a few minutes to focus on Sasuke as the Uchiha threw a windmill at him. Orochimaru dodged to the side before Sasuke threw a second one. Orochimaru was getting bored with dodging and looked at Sasuke with a look of disappointment. Sasuke-kun, is that all there is to your power? Orochimaru asked, but narrowed his eyes when he saw Sasuke smirk. Orochimaru saw a string of wire that was connected to the windmill shuriken while Sasuke pulled on the wire, slamming and trapping Orochimaru to a tree while Sasuke made the tiger seal. Kaden. Ruka no Jutsu, fire release. Dragon fire technique, Sasuke yelled as he sent a massive fire along the lines of wire and straight towards Orochimaru. Orochimaru smirked as he saw the incoming flames. That's the way, Sasuke-kun, Orochimaru, as he got hit head-on by the fire which caused the tree to catch fire and start burning. Sasuke breathed heavily and glanced at Naruto, who was feeling much better, but Sasuke gasped when he saw a long neck on Orochimaru aim for his neck. Sasuke couldn't rebound in time, but the strike didn't come as Sasuke opened his eyes to see Naruto with his foot planted into Orochimaru's face. Naruto huffed with a smirk before turning back to Sasuke. I think I made it just in time, Naruto said to him. Sasuke grinned with a nod before the two genin turned back to Orochimaru, who came back clapping. Excellent, you two. You far exceed my expectations. You both will make wonderful hosts, Orochimaru, before a dark aura surrounded him. Sasuke narrowed his eyes while Naruto widened them. Oh, please don't tell me, Naruto said while Hikari gasped. It's him. He's that one that will bring the world to destruction through darkness. Naruto, he is the one you have to beat, Hikari said to him. Naruto mentally cursed his luck of finding the person he was supposed to fight. Naruto gripped his sword tighter before charging at Orochimaru, but he didn't get his desired result and was instantly sent flying by Orochimaru into a tree, causing a small crater as the blonde slumped to the floor. Sasuke gasped and appeared next to Naruto along with Sakura as the light around Naruto's body began to fade. Damn it, Muga no Kyochi is ending. I can't waste it, and we were barely winning before this. We need to get out of here, Naruto thought as he turned to Sasuke and Sakura. Guys, we have to retreat. This guy is going to be the end of us. Let's get out of here, Naruto told them. Both nodded immediately and turned to see Orochimaru grinning at them before closing in on the team. Sakura reached into her pouch and threw 4 smoke bombs on the ground, covering the team in smoke. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow while Naruto used the last remains of the Muga no Kyochi to enhance his speed and get away from Orochimaru as fast as he could while carrying Sasuke and Sakura away. Orochimaru snickered as he felt their presence disappear fast and let the dark aura around him fade. Well, I didn't get to mark Sasuke-kun. Oh well, I at least had a very good experience with that team. I'll have your body, Sasuke-kun, one way or the other, Orochimaru said before disappearing from view. With Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura, Naruto huffed and appeared in a new location while dropping Sasuke and Sakura in the bushes. All three huffed while Naruto's white aura disappeared. Naruto instantly began breathing heavier while his muscles seemed strained. Naruto gave a painful chuckle. It's just like Hikari-chan said. Man, I'm so damn tired, Naruto said to himself before slumping to the ground. Sasuke and Sakura turned to see Naruto sleeping with sweat dropping down his face. HMPH, it looks like Naruto Baka exhausted himself. What was he thinking going against an S-rank missing nin? What an idiot, Sakura said while Sasuke gritted his teeth at her insults. Sakura, shut up, Sasuke said, effectively making Sakura gasp and close her mouth. Sasuke stared at Naruto and sat down. He saved our lives. I've always been the egotistical jerk, but Naruto has always looked out for us. I was so damn hard-headed. If Naruto hadn't saved me from that last strike, I might be dead. Sakura, stop taking Naruto for granted. If it wasn't for him and if we were paired up with anyone else, all three of us would be dead. I really hate to admit it, but Naruto, this Dobi, knows more about power than I do. He's shown me something different from what I was searching for. I'll attain my power the right way. If I meet Itachi, then I'll kill him and avenge my clan, but I won't dishonor my clan's name by leaving off in search of power, no matter how power-hungry my father was. I understand this much better now, and I have the Dobi, Naruto to thank for this. So Sakura, that's enough from your insults, Sasuke said to her. Sakura widened her eyes and turned to Naruto, then nodded. Sasuke gave the slightest smile and laid down to follow Naruto's lead and went to sleep, with Sakura staying guard for the next 3 hours. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes to see Hikari and Kyuubi in the sewer-like mindscape with him as Naruto strained to stand. Man, you weren't kidding, Hikari-chan, that move really takes a toll on you, Naruto said while Hikari chuckled with a nod. Still, there is no denying that you stood a pretty good hot against that man. Though this turn of events bothers me, Hikari said to them. Naruto sighed and passed the bars along with Hikari as they stayed next to Kyuubi. So Orochimaru's the one to bring destruction. Then how is he this strong? Did he get his sword before me? Naruto asked. Hikari wasn't sure if Naruto was right or wrong, but that power she felt was undoubtedly evil. Very evil. Well, since you know it's him, shouldn't that make this easier? Kyuubi asked. Hikari shook her head in a big negative. No, Naruto-sama had to use the Muga no Kyochi just to keep up with Orochimaru. It was when the first was nearly gone that Orochimaru began to get serious. If Naruto-sama stayed, the he and you most certainly would have died, Hikari said, causing Naruto to gulp and Kyuubi to narrow her eyes. Kyuubi-chan, do you have a better form to talk to? I think it would be better if all of us were around this height to talk better, Naruto told her. Kyuubi nodded and vanished for a second, revealing a hot red-haired woman in a black and red kimono. Kyuubi smirked at Naruto's stare, but coughed, bringing his attention to her. Is this any better? She asked. Naruto nodded dumbly before Kyuubi sat on the wet ground, but Naruto stood up. Hold on, ladies, Naruto said before closing his eyes. Suddenly the scenery began to change into a beautiful meadow full of flowers and a pond along with some trees and a house off in the distance. Naruto opened his eyes and laid on the ground before looking at the two women's confused expressions. What? I didn't want my new friend to be staying in a wet sewer the whole time, Naruto said with a smile. Hikari turned a gaze to Kyuubi, who only chuckled. Thank you, Kit. I appreciate it, Kyuubi said with a slight bow. Naruto simply nodded before everyone continued with the conversation. So Naruto-sama, you believe you have found one warrior who will fight with you, is that right? Hikari asked. Naruto nodded fast with a smile and turned to her. I do. The red-headed boy Sabaku no Gara. He's slightly twisted from what I felt and from what Kyuubi-chan told me, but I think he's a good choice. If he's anything like me, then I can sympathize with him, Naruto responded. Hikari nodded before turning to Kyuubi. So Kyuubi, what do you know about Kenjutsu? Hikari asked, bringing Naruto's attention to her as well. Kyuubi sighed before brushing her hand through her red hair. As I said before, I don't know much. I only know enough for Kit to fight solid Chunin level people. Beyond that, he needs a Kenjutsu expert, Kyuubi stated. Hikari sighed while Naruto looked at the ground. Hey, when I have my 10 warriors, will they be able to use the other forms also of Muga no Kyochi? Naruto asked. They can use all, but the last one. That last one is reserved only for you, Naruto-sama. However, I have to tell you. Just because you can attain the final level, it doesn't mean that you will be able to beat the darkness. If anything, it only brings you to a 50-50 chance of actually beating it, Hikari said with much truth in her voice. So if I went to fight Orochimaru again right now, what is the percentage that I'd win? Naruto asked. Hikari raised an eyebrow at the question, but in the end it didn't really matter. Without Kyuubi's chakra, I'd say you have a 1% chance of winning. Now with control of Kyuubi's chakra, you have a 10% chance of winning. So right now, the odds are completely against you, Hikari said while Naruto slumped. Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence, Naruto said with a storm cloud hanging over him. Hikari chuckled along with Kyuubi while Naruto gave a small pout. It's not funny, damn it, Naruto said to them. Both girls nodded slowly and came back to a serious face. Well, at least you got away from him. You also helped your teammate avoid a nasty hickey. I knew that guy had a thing for boys. It's always the genius types, Kyuubi said, which caused Naruto and Hikari to nod. Well, Naruto-sama, you can only use Muga no Kyochi 2 more times before you're completely exhausted. After that it will take at least 5 days before you can use up to 3 again. Now, try to focus on the exams and keep your sense up and stay away from that snake guy, Hikari said, more of a plead than an order. Naruto instantly nodded and disappeared, leaving Hikari and Kyuubi in the newly renovated mindscape. Well, I'm gonna go take a nap in my new house, Kyuubi said while walking off. Hikari's sweat dropped, but disappeared, also leaving an empty field. Outside the mindscape, Naruto slowly opened his eyes to see Sakura standing guard and Sasuke sleeping. Naruto managed to sit up, but grumbled about the pain for a bit before getting to his feet. Sakura, you can get some sleep. I'll take over now, Naruto said to her. Sakura was startled to see Naruto awake, but shook her head in a negative, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. No, Naruto, you and Sasuke-kun need to rest. I'll keep watch. I did nothing during that fight, so this is the least I can do. Recover your strength so that we can all pass this damn hell of an exam, Sakura told him. Naruto wanted to retort, but didn't, and simply went back to sleep, not wanting to think about anything, but finding his warriors and defeating the darkness that would try to conquer the world.